Pranati Khanna. They would just be like, "Hey PK, what are you doing?"
Did you get picked on?
I love those songs, but like,
Secret behind all of this multitasking, dude.
do I have to pick what I want to do, what I want to focus on? You only have this much time in your life. Just do it all.
Do it all.
Hyderabadi kid. Oh my God, is that my? Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Awesome. I'm keeping this.
I don't want women in music to just constantly be put into a little box and like, oh, they have to look like that and be like that and act like that.
A little follow-up question around rock music. What is your game plan to bring it back to its glory days? I want to just sort of explain. That's awesome.
It's so good.
Yo, this is crazy.
What?
Welcome to the Ma podcast. Today we have an amazing artist from Hyderabad who broke all language barrier myths. And she's an English rock star. She's nationally also one of the best performers. She's hit music festivals like NH7 Weekender, Echoes of Earth, and she's even performed in international music festivals. She's also done a lot of music videos. She's one of the first artists from Hyderabad to get featured on VH1, and there's a lot more to talk about.
First of all, thanks for having me.
Knowing your personal journey and where all of this started for PK.
So PK began, I would say, when I was 14 years old. And it was always a pet name that my cousins had for me, Pranati Khanna. They would just be like, "Hey PK, what are you doing?" And I started writing music because my parents were always really into like rock and roll growing up. We always listened to the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or whatever at home. And they had these friends who we used to come over for parties, Christmas or whatever, and they'd play the guitar and they'd all like have this jam sesh. And so then I was like, oh, this looks so cool. I want to do this. So I picked up the guitar. My mother actually taught me my first few chords on the guitar
Whoa.
because she used to play in school. And then I just started writing songs. So it was like 14 years old or something. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's awesome. So your parents were musicians too?
Not musicians, just music enthusiasts. Like, I feel like
Awesome.
I wouldn't know anything about music if it wasn't for them.
Oh, so your journey started at home.
Yeah.
Unlike a lot of other musicians where they have to like hide this from home and do. So you had a lot of support from your parents that way then.
I have a lot of privilege that way for sure.
So the guitar was probably your first instrument that you picked up?
Well, actually, my mom tried to teach my sister and I the piano when we were kids, when we were 6, 7 years old.
Okay.
So she just do like the little and I used to get really bored with it, but my sister played the piano more. I
Awesome.
wanted to play the guitar. So I chose that as the instrument.
And did schooling have anything to do with shaping your music or did, or was it like a very something that pushed you back and didn't let you be yourself?
Yeah. You know how Indian schools are, man.
Oh
Like,
my God, yeah,
it's
definitely.
so. I always wanted to, like, if I had a choice with having music as a subject, like, if
Mhm.
we had that, like a lot of international schools do, or schools now do.
Yeah, now they do.
Like, we had music class, but it was, you're doing a Saregama Padanisa, and they do the same thing the whole year,
Oh my God.
which is
yeah.
okay. You're doing scales every day, that's okay. But I really wanted proper, like, schooling or some guidance with music. So I ended up not really, like, I think the only way school probably pushed me towards music was just making me a really angsty teenager.
Uh-oh.
It's just really-
What school were you from?
I was in Nasser.
Nasser. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And I
Nasser.
love my school. I love my teachers.
Okay.
But like, I was frustrated that I couldn't do what I was good at.
Mhm.
I had to do what we were told to do, which was math and science and Hindi.
Oh, God, yeah. So your name is Pranati Khanna.
Mhm.
So if I'm assuming you're not Telugu,
Yeah.
so where are you from, like regionally? Because
Yeah, that's a good
Great.
question.
Just want to ask.
Okay, so My dad is from Delhi originally. Well, actually, we go way back to Pakistan because we're Punjabi from Lahore. And my grandparents then moved down to, I think, Delhi first. And then my granddad got posted here in Hyderabad. So that's how Hyderabad began. And my mom is half Kannadiga, half Tamilian. So she's part of my family's in Bangalore, part was in Chennai. My grandpa was in the army, so they moved around a lot. So mom ended up in Hyderabad. That's when they met.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Crazy. So yeah. So as the name suggests, you're
Quite an all mix.
yeah.
I am.
Okay, that's awesome. So did that affect you in school though?
Yeah,
Not having the local language advantage?
for sure. Also, not just that, my parents suck at being Indian. Like like
Okay.
my mom, for example, because she grew up army kid, but also my grandparents from her side, from my grandpa and grandma, they served the church of South India. So they grew up around they were missionaries. So they
Okay.
grew up around a lot of my mom grew up around a lot of foreign missionaries, like British people, German people. So a lot of Anglo influence there. And then my dad's side, again, big like colonial kind of influence. And, they all kind of had to speak the Queen's English or whatever it was. And
Awesome.
man,
Okay.
like my grandparents used to speak in Punjabi to each other and they spoke good Hindi. But for some reason, because my dad was a boarding school kid, he just never really spoke in Hindi. So at home, we all spoke English. And I go to school and all these kids are talking to me in Hindi. And I'm like, what are you saying? Or in Telugu. And I'm like, what are you saying?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
can imagine.
And I felt awful because I wanted to fit in, but I
Mhm.
just never did.
Okay.
Yeah, it was tough. Because everyone's like, oh yeah, we saw this Hrithik Roshan movie on the weekend or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And my parents would have made us watch like The Sound of Music.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So no Indian entertainment as such was
Not
happening at home
really.
at that time.
Not really. I felt like a
Okay.
weirdo in
Did
school.
you get picked on
So
in
much.
school? Oh my god. Yeah.
I was the butt end of so many. I literally didn't have friends till like the 8th grade. I want to say,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh.
I was one of those kids.
Okay. Okay. Ouch. did that did that reflect in your music somehow?
I guess that's where the angst started. Always feeling like the outsider, like never really fitting in. And not because I was genuinely like, I just didn't fit in because I didn't know what to talk to anyone about. I would come with my little Walkman and be like, hey, did you hear the Backstreet Boys? Like, have you heard Will Smith? And these girls would look at me like I was weird and they'd be like,
Oh my
eh.
god.
So,
So yeah, coming to the next question, I was about to say when during that phase, generally people like kids tend to use entertainment as a form of solace also.
Hmm.
So what sort of music were you into at that time during the school days? What was your whole playlist like?
Definitely started, okay, well, because of mom and dad, we were listening, my sister and I, really into the Beatles. Always growing up, big Beatles fans. We're a Beatles and Rolling Stones family. And then I think once my sister and I started forming our own opinions of music, picking what we wanted to listen to, then it was the boy bands, right? Boyzone, Backstreet Boys. I went for Westlife when they came to Bangalore.
Whoa, okay.
Like,
Nice,
I lost my mind. I was like, yeah, I was probably the oldest person. No, actually, everyone there was really old. It was good fun, but and then the second I hit 14, I discovered Linkin Park, and then I discovered Limp Bizkit, and then I discovered Korn, and then I discovered POD, and then I wanted to listen to heavy music, and then Avril Lavigne happened a few years before that. So I was like going into the whole Sum 41, Blink 182, the punk, rock, punk, pop punk kind of phase. Kind of abandoned the boy bands at that point. And yeah. So that was I think where the rock influence began. Started with the Beatles,
Awesome.
went to what I would pick was a modern version of rock.
So, okay, before we get into a lot of music, I also wanted to ask a few Hyderabadi questions. You know, so in Hyderabad, what is your kind of like nightlife? What do you chill out on?
Oh,
know,
okay. But
what is your vibe
what's
like?
my vibe? What are we doing on Saturday night? Okay. Usually it's a gig. If there's a good gig. If there's a band coming down, then we're at EXT or Moonshine or whatever, watching whatever. And then otherwise, my Saturday night is with the girls. We either go to my best friend's apartment and we just whatever,
Okay,
like
you've grown
put
into house
on.
parties now. So
Yeah, complete. Like I feel like we do go out to a good brewery every once in a while, but I've
awesome.
reached that stage where I want to be in my pajamas,
Okay.
and I need the girls, I need my music, I need my pajamas. So
Awesome.
that's
Awesome.
become my
Yeah.
Saturday night now,
Just a chill, relax
just to
session.
chill.
So, any other thing that connects you to Hyderabad? Is there something as as a person who's just living
Lived
in
here
the
all my
city for a while
life.
now?
Uh,
I mean, who's born and brought up here?
Born
I'm
and brought up.
assuming. Yeah, yeah, born and brought up. Then yeah.
Hyderabadi kid. Oh my god, is that my phone? Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't even know
It's
what
like
that's
an
for.
alarm for like
I literally don't know what
the
that's
gym.
for. 4:45? What would that be?
Awesome. I'm keeping this.
You have to. And the big
4:45, guys.
question is, it's
Speaker's
4:45.
alarm.
What even is that for? I'm thinking about it now. Anyway, Hyderabadi kid. I think for me, it just goes back my connection with the cities. I've seen it evolve musically, like from when I was a kid. So there were so many bands that used to, that my parents and I would go and watch, and their
Mhm.
friends were in bands back then, and so
Wow.
we'd go and watch their friends' bands.
This is what, 20 years ago?
This was 20, oh, more than 20, 25 years ago, literally.
Oh my
From
God.
then
Oh my God.
till, so from when I was 6, 7 years old, and then up until now, so I've seen like the first gig I ever organized. For example, I was 14 years old,
Mhm.
and we wanted to do this from school to raise money for charity.
Organized.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It was a metal gig. We had Stiff Neck Syndrome, Script, this band called Delay 456. It's a bunch of local acts. Stiff
Okay.
Neck Syndrome, I think, was our headliner. And my very first band, we were called White Noise,
White noise.
and we were terrible. We were so bad.
Uh-oh.
But my parents were so proud that, we were playing, I don't know what, we were playing like Pink Floyd, and we were
Wow.
playing, oh my God, we attempted to do a Steve Vai song. And
Okay.
there was the guitarist in our band who just thought he could shred this solo, and he messed it up on stage.
Okay, I'm sorry I'm laughing, but
Please laugh. I beg of you to laugh, because it was so bad. And the saddest part about this gig was, I'm 14 years old at this point. I'm like, I'm still the same height, but like I'm a kid at this point. I'm 14, and I didn't know the meaning of a headlining act. So the
Okay.
more I saw these bands play, the more scared we were getting, and I was like, I want to play last. Okay.
Okay.
I was like, I'm too afraid to go. I can we play last? And so I had this one girl that I'd hired who was in the music scene to manage this gig, because I was still finding my way. I was like, we have the funding, put together this gig, ticket sales go to Gandhi Foundation or whatever it is.
Wait, this was in ninth? What do you
Yeah,
mean,
we
like
were
9th, 10th grade?
we were in the 9th. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
So
I was just locking class doors and being a class monitor back then, I guess. Oh my God, you're organizing a whole gig
that was
and
my
it's
first
going
time
to a
organizing.
charity. Oh my God, okay.
Yeah, I was one of those kids.
Oh,
So-
behaves very well.
So then
Okay, yeah. So you were
We-
hiring a manager for this?
she was like, so we went last, and this girl was so mad. She was like, who do these kids think they are, headlining this gig? And the worst part was, we got booed off stage. We
Oh
were so
my
bad.
God.
Everyone was like,
Oh my.
boo, get off. Who the hell are
So did you end up playing after the headliner?
No, we just got off stage. And then Stiff Neck Syndrome came, closed the gig.
Okay.
And I was like, I had to hide. I literally had to hide myself for
Uh-oh.
like several months after that. But I was like, okay, at least we got the money. So
Awesome,
it
yo.
was terrible. So my introduction so my tie to Hyderabad is forever ingrained in my head, that I have seen the music scene evolve for like decades now.
And you've been a very foundational part of it.
I try.
Like, you're an inspiration to a lot of artists who are trying
Thank
indie
you.
music. Like me, I've met a lot of other rappers in the city and all. So there was this whole rock generation that happened. I remember during 2014, 15, say it picked up, where Heart Cup,
Yeah.
the Jubilee Hills one,
Yeah.
Moonshine, everybody were doing rock gigs, metal
Mhm.
gigs.
Mhm.
Even now, obviously, there's a lineup happening almost every fortnight. There's a lineup happening. So that was like the very foundational step. And so when did you get in to the live scene, like exactly.
So then I think
With the whole culture.
with the rock culture, with
Yeah,
the
with the
metal
rock
culture.
culture, with the rock culture.
You know,
Like back in the days.
I started when I was 16, 17, but I started as a photographer. So
Whoa, wait.
yeah,
Okay.
I was always supporting the scene because I had so many friends. My boyfriend at the time was the basie of Script and now Godless. And
Yes.
so Abbas and I were like really always organizing stuff. And he's again one more backbone of promoting metal and rock and
Yes.
and we started so he's 4 years older than me. So he was, I want to say I was 16, he was 19 going on 20. And I had just started taking photographs. I was getting really into my art at the time. And so he would get me to shoot these gigs. He would have organized them. Script was playing. We had a lot of bands back then. And there were always something or the other going on. And then that's how I got into it. And then when I was 20, so like 4 years after that, I was playing, a lot of acoustic gigs, so many acoustic gigs.
Yes.
And he was like, get a band together. Let's get you, into the scene. Like you've supported it. Now be a part of it. So then I got the band together and then I properly started recording and putting music out. He helped me out a lot with that when I was 20.
So this band was Ragamuffins.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how Ragamuffins started.
That's how it started.
Nice. Where was the first gig of Ragamuffins? Is there or any iconic gig during the first days? Oh, he's played in a farm.
The Farm.
The Farm.
Do you remember that place? It was in Jubilee Hills.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think our first gig was The Farm. No, you know what? Our first gig was actually a store opening, Archana Rao's store opening. And we played a cover of a Nora Jones song. And we were a semi-acoustic band at the time. We weren't like a big loud band. We had a djembe, we had guitar, bass, and vocals. And everyone doing backup vocals. That was our first gig. And then after that, it was at The Farm.
So you opened a store. Very commercial, dude.
Very commercial to start off.
Like, yeah.
Not indie at all.
Awesome. And what was Ragamuffins' favorite venue back then?
I think it was definitely either The Farm or OTM. OTM, the Daspala one.
Yes. Okay.
We loved playing there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good place too.
And then once Moonshine came into the picture. Yeah.
Every artist's favorite.
Artist loves that. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Moonshine.
Shout out to Moonshine.
Then how did spell check happen?
That's a funny story.
The scene around that?
It's a ridiculous story.
Oh my God. I mean.
So basically, now the Ragamuffins, we were doing fine. We were doing good. We put an EP out. We were doing my first time going to other cities and performing. And it was great. I was enjoying this. And then one day we get a DM from this Brit band who were also called the Ragamuffins. And they were like, we got here first. We're called the Ragamuffins. You're not the Ragamuffins. We're the Ragamuffins. And I was like, we can all be the Ragamuffins. So they were like, people keep looking up our music and finding your music online. And this is like, I'm still at this point very new to Spotify, still trying to navigate my way around, all this stuff. And basically they said, can you please change your name?
Oh my God.
I was like, no, I'm not going to change my name. We worked so hard on establishing this much also. I'm not going to do that. But then Alex, who's our drummer, Alex was like, you know what? Ragamuffin started off as your project. But then as time went on, like Alex was new to the band. Like the expansion was very different from what the Ragamuffins originally was. And so he was like, because this is a very new project and we're all new to this, it's no longer what the Ragamuffins was. We should change our name. And I was like, rebranding is tricky. It's tricky because everyone knows you as one thing. Tomorrow, if I call myself Ramesh, nobody will know who I am, right? So we renamed ourselves to Spellcheck. We put out a couple songs. And the band disbanded like very quickly after because everyone moved out of the city.
Okay.
So there was no point in the rebrand after all. Yeah.
Did you ask for some ransom from the original Ragamuffins or the older Ragamuffins? I wouldn't say original also.
I was like, what's in it for us? What's in it for us? So they were like, nothing. You
The one thing indie artist needs. Self-respect.
Self-respect.
पैसा नहीं है कुछ भी नहीं है चलेगा.
Self-respect.
And this happened during what year? Like timeline wise, I'm just trying to piece all of this together.
2017. 2017.
Uh-oh. Okay.
2017. We did our last tour in 2018 and then called it.
But Alex is what, still associated with you, right?
Yeah. So
So-
I think so. There was Ricky, Sanju, Alex, Eddie, and me. We were a 5-piece band. Ricky and Sanju then moved on from the band. Sanju moved
Okay.
to Canada. Ricky then started his own company and got really busy, so he couldn't do the band anymore. Alex actually moved to Bangalore, and then it was just Eddie and me. Eddie and me then started PK. And
Yeah.
then Alex was like, I'm in, but I can't be there for jams all the time. And Bangalore's not far, so we anyway
Yeah,
figured it out.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
Rex, who was originally a part of the Ragamuffins, came back and joined PK. And now that's,
Awesome.
yeah.
He's the bassy.
Yeah. He's
Awesome.
the OG member of the band.
So that's how PK then started.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I think what, then 1 year into your whole PK gig, the
Mhm.
lockdown happened. How did that, did that affect you?
You know,
I mean, there was a song of yours though.
yeah,
Oh
Don't
my
know.
God. Okay, yeah, you don't have to.
you don't have
Yes,
to.
yes. I mean, that went viral. It went into
Yeah.
VH1 and all
Yeah.
also during that time.
Yeah.
But then otherwise, the lockdown phase, how was it? I mean, especially after rebranding yourself the third time,
Yeah.
now you're facing like,
I was like, what is with this rebranding, constant rebranding? But yeah, I put out my first song, Go to Fashion and Love, and then the lockdown happened. And I was like, dude, this is awful. And it was okay because so many people were putting out music and everyone was online. Everyone's attention was on music or on what was happening on the internet. That it was
yeah.
okay to kind of, even though there wasn't any live, your streams were better at the time because everyone was listening.
Literally, yeah.
There was so much
And-
attention. So like when I put out right before things kind of cleared up and we kind of went back out there, I put out You Don't Have To. And then I started playing live. So I had like my couple of songs that were out during lockdown that I could then play live when things opened up again. So thankfully, I mean, even though lockdown really like messed with everyone's heads, I actually credit it for me sitting down focusing on my music at that time.
Yeah, there was a lot of time and space
Yeah.
for artists also to
Yeah.
go through. Yeah, my lockdown phase was pretty dark. though.
Yeah? Was it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously musically, I actually got to figure out what we should actually do as musicians. So yeah, definitely, I think that it started off very dark and then it ended up with like, okay, now I know what I'm going to do. So
It was a phase where like everyone just had to sit and face themselves.
yeah, definitely.
Or like,
That was a
yeah, what do you want to do with your life? Or what have you been ignoring while you were busy out there with the world?
I don't know, post lockdown, I think Hyderabad was a little more lenient in terms of starting off shows.
Yeah,
And there was
we just went for it.
did that help you in
It
any
did.
way?
It did. I remember like we were barely in the clear and everyone was just like, whatever, let's just go for it. So people were organizing gigs already. We were already
Yeah.
playing gigs very quickly afterwards. What was it? We played, I want to say, I don't even remember where it was. It wasn't even Hyderabad. It was Bombay. We went to Bombay and played a few gigs. One gig.
Wow.
Yeah. That was shortly after lockdown.
So post lockdown, wala PK ka, what was one of the favorite venues to perform? Where were you?
Post lockdown. Definitely. I mean, we played a lot of different venues. Like at this point now with PK, all the music and I would say even just the milestones that I hit were way beyond whatever I had with Spellcheck, Ragamuffins, etc. Like I was playing venues that I always wanted to play that I couldn't play. Like for me, playing Antisocial was so much fun in Bombay. Like, and then there was a time when I was going to the Piano Man in Delhi and playing there quite often, and that was beautiful. So and everything was different. Like with the Piano Man, it was my jazz stuff, and then with the Antisocial or with EXT in Hyderabad, two amazing venues, and Fandom in Bangalore, it was the loud rock stuff. So I felt like after pandemic, during the pandemic, I just kind of sat down, and I always have like this duality. Like, what are you really? Are you a jazz singer? Are you sing rock? Are you an artist? Are you a singer? Like what? Like for me, just this whole khichdi of things that is
Okay.
me kind of got to me a lot. But I was like, I really have to figure out what pick. Do I have to pick what I want to do, what I want to focus on? And then at the end of it, I realized, I mean, you only have this much time in your life. Just do it all.
Do it all.
Don't
Awesome.
define what you are. So I was like, a jazz gig, go do a jazz gig. Rock gig, go do a rock. Write a rock song. Write a jazz song. Like do whatever you want to do. Do it all. So I think for me, my favorite venue for rock would have been EXT, but also Fandom. But jazz, obviously, Piano Man, hands
Yeah.
down, beautiful.
And you've also attended a lot of music festivals as PK.
Mhm.
So, which one of these was your favorite? Yeah. Where was this?
I think, I mean, NH7 and Echoes of Earth were beautiful experiences,
Mhm.
but Oddball was chaotic, but it was our favorite stage. I think we had reached a part of our like journey as PK where we had defined the sound so much better than we had with NH7 and Echoes of Earth that
Awesome.
we loved our live performance, even though, and you know what this is like, our in-ear mix was killing us because we hadn't gotten a good enough sound check. We were dying, but we had this music is like, it's there, like you can't even hear your click, but you're playing it. You know what's coming, you know what's what. You're just playing
Oh,
muscle
yeah,
memory,
yeah.
singing muscle memory, and it was a beautiful gig. We loved that show.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think in that show you also collaborated
Yeah,
with Steve
Steve
Knight.
Knight.
Yeah. Hey, how was that experience, yo?
That was lovely. I mean, it was surreal for us when he first called me, because we like, I remember this channel called ITV.
Yeah.
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 So my sister and I used to keep calling ITV, okay?
Okay.
And we'd always like Flipside Someday was one of our favorite tracks to select, or Linkin Park in the end. So this was my sister and my favorite thing to do. And then suddenly one day, I get a call from my manager, and he says, this photographer Jishnu, who shot us and was shooting Flipside, says that Steve Knight is looking for a female singer in rock to collaborate with. And he had just collaborated with Brother V. So he was like, I want to explore the Indian market more. I want to do rock. And so he put us in touch. And then that's how the whole collaboration came about. We did the song Running, and then we performed it
Yeah.
live.
So, as a songwriter, how is that experience? Do you do that often? Do you
Yeah.
often work on WhatsApp
Literally.
and just remotely work with your producer, or do you guys sit down?
It's,
Or-
even though Eddie is my producer, Jonathan
Yeah.
Edward, right? Our whole working relationship is like this. I will be with my acoustic guitar making voice notes on my phone, or writing music and making it on GarageBand. And I send those tiny little snippets on WhatsApp to Eddie. And then he'll take it and he, does his big fancy thing. With Steve, he wrote, he was just sitting in some, I don't know, very picturesque place and just like playing his guitar, and he was doing this improv session. And he was just letting out whatever was coming. And he was, all these lyrics, a lot of the lyrics that ended up in the song, he was just saying these things, improvising, just like letting it flow. And I was listening to this WhatsApp audio note that he sent me, thinking, this is crazy. Like, this is some good stuff. And I was just like writing down whatever he was singing. And I had written this little riff on the guitar, this da 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 da, like, and then I sent that to Eddie. And then he put the whole thing together. We layered those vocals eventually, and then it just happened.
And then you guys ended up doing a music video also.
Which we shot at Oddball.
So, how was the experience shooting the music video? Was it like your regular music videos, or was it just you had to just do?
We just, there's Jonathan and Drishti, they're two videographers and photographers from Hyderabad. They were like, we want to shoot your live set, and you take the footage and make your music video with it. And so they came from Hyderabad to Bangalore. They just were shooting us our performance. And I just took all those snippets and I put together this music video. And that was
Okay,
that.
who edited it?
Me.
Oh, okay. This is The multi-talented PK. That's awesome. You're an editor too. Oh my god, that's another question altogether. Then I think after Oddball is when you recently went to Music Matters,
Yeah.
right? Like, how was that? How was this your first international gig?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So how was that?
It was nice. It was so rushed. So like we didn't like get to soak it all in as much as we would have liked to. But it was, I think, just a beautiful thing to think that when someone says you've been selected, you feel like, oh wow, I've been selected.
Oh yeah.
So it was a nice feeling. And then so very humbled by that. Like literally I was like, I want to make the most of this opportunity. And I remember like I got the call from TuneCore, and I think they usually plan to send a solo artist. For them, it's always a solo
Okay.
artist or max a duo. But here we're a team of 5 people. There's 4 of us in the band and Karthika sound engineer. And so we had to fundraise to afford to get the whole band
I was
across.
about to ask, yeah.
Yeah. And initially I was thinking to myself, and I remember there are a couple of, you know how our scene is in Hyderabad. You'll have a whole lot of love and you'll have 2 haters, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I had these like 2 haters, and I have only 2 haters who just go on badgering me. Okay.
Oh my
One of
god.
them messages me saying, "Why are you asking people to pay for your vacation?" And I'm like,
Oh my god.
it's not how it works. It's really not how it works.
Oh my god.
So
No, but how
um
did the crowdfunding thing go?
it was amazing.
Did you get like anonymous?
Anonymous, friends,
Okay.
family,
Awesome,
just
awesome.
well wishers, really. We had so
Awesome.
Skillbox supported us by like letting us put up this page. We just sent the link around. People were donating, and then we did one. We got Antisocial gave me a gig, which happened to be on my birthday,
Awesome.
and he was like, "This is my way of supporting you. Here's the
Awesome.
gig. Play the gig, get the money." And then we sold merch at our Hyderabad EXT gig, which was a few Sundays ago. All of
So you
that,
did everything that you
literally
could.
everything. Like at the end of it, I needed a nap. I was like, oh my, this is exhausting.
Oh
But
my.
it was so
Yeah.
heartening because I was like so grateful that there are people out there who want to support what we're doing.
Oh, definitely.
And my whole thing was A, rock is not dead. B, rock is still a thing. And C, yes, you can have a female lead in a rock band, and you need more of that. I want, I want louder women out there. I don't want women in music to just constantly be, put into a little box and like, oh, they have to look like that and be like that
Oh
and
my god.
act like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Not happening.
Nah, I'm so tired of it. And I was like, thank you for supporting our art, but also for womenkind out there, honestly, like just make a statement saying, please go and do your thing. Like get out there.
Definitely.
Yeah, get out there.
So talking about your journey, I wanted to get a little more personal.
Okay.
What does music as an art form even mean to you?
That's a deep question.
Okay.
What does music as an art form mean to me?
Yeah.
It means everything. Okay, so for example, like we were talking about when I was in school, right? And I was constantly frustrated with something or the other, like not fitting in, not doing subjects that I enjoy doing. And then like what we call growing pains, just like something or the other that pisses you off. And I found that I wasn't very good at talking about it, but I would either write poems about it or I would draw about it. So that was my venting was always either drawing or writing poems. And I soon came when I then learned how to play the guitar, then I would start songwriting, like genuinely writing songs about what I was feeling. And it was somehow anger was always a theme. It was always I was either angry about a situation or angry about things not working out for me the way I wanted them to work out, or and yeah, you know how it goes, anger about a relationship eventually and stuff like that. You know how it is. So yeah, I think art is if I wouldn't have an outlet if it wasn't for art, for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is more than music then. You're also
Yeah,
into
it's art.
Okay.
I've danced about stuff before.
How so?
Yeah.
So, hey, you said photography before.
Hmm.
So where did that start?
So I
I'm
studied
just really
animation.
curious.
Let's start there. I studied animation.
Okay.
After a school, my college was animation. And in animation, when you go in school, we learned photography, Photoshop, Illustrator, video
What school
editing.
was Nasser?
No, no, after school,
Oh, after
my
school. Okay.
college.
Oh, okay.
I called it
Awesome.
school. No, no,
Oh,
in
okay. What
college.
college were you in?
It was called Picasso.
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 Awesome. You're
Okay.
very artistic.
Oh my God. And it was an institution that was run by the Maharishi Group, where it's a long distance education course where we would have these Canadian professors, between them working on their movies. Like I think a lot of them were working with Disney and Pixar and stuff like that. Between projects, they would come teach us and then go back. So they'd come for semesters, go back. So we had my thing was, because I was drawing cartoons growing up all the time, and that's where all of the venting came.
Okay.
Just drawing these
All this.
cartoons about.
Okay.
My teacher shouted at me today. Cartoon, dirty face. Yeah,
Oh, yeah. The teacher's now looking like an evil.
exactly.
I got it.
So I wanted to do animation, and then so I went to that college, and because we were learning, when you study animation, you need to know everything around it. So you have to know about camera angles, photography, lighting, texturing, rigging, whatever, movement. You have to study movement, right? So then I developed a huge love for photography. I started like investing in gear, and for me, concert photography, of course, was my favorite thing, because there was so much like energy and just like motion in what I was capturing, especially at metal gigs. And I remember, as a photographer, I would put on a bike helmet, and I would go into the mosh pit with my camera just so that
Oh.
I wouldn't like get head
Badass. Oh my God.
and I would put the thing up and like shoot, and it was crazy. So yeah, that was.
Any camera damages during a mosh pit?
Thank God, no.
Oh, okay.
I mean, one would think.
I mean, I was like, helmet is cool, but what about the gear?
I feel like everyone knew I was there, so they were also a little careful
Little-
about
yeah,
me.
yeah,
So
yeah.
once in a while, they'd get like, but that was it.
Get an elbow here and there.
Yeah.
But
Nothing major.
cool. Nice, nice. Okay, so animation. Then what happened with animation then after photography? Once you finished your course?
Once I finished my course, so here's what happened. I got really into from the Khanna family. First of all, my great uncle, so that's my Dadaji's brother, Krishan Khanna. He's one of India's most famous artists. He, MF Hussain, Raza Souza, they all were a gang of the progressive artist movement. And so I always was inclined towards painting and art and stuff like that as a form of expression. And so once I started taking photographs, I started messing with them on Photoshop. I started printing them out, adding some paint, doing something, and I started making digital art that I would then produce on canvas. And then, right after college, I decided I wanted to pursue that more than I wanted to pursue animation, because the starter jobs you were getting in animation were just like you're working on Chota Bheem, okay? Like
Okay.
I was not about to do that.
Okay.
So I had an exhibition at the Marriott when I was 19, and then I got fully into like creating art, exhibiting, selling for a good few years, and I do it seasonally, like every once in a few years or whatever. Either acrylic on canvas or digital art. So I was using my photography for that.
Wow, so you literally even sold paintings.
Yeah. It was a big, huge part of my life until
What
I
was
just.
the costliest thing that you sold?
Costliest thing. I always wanted to be affordable art, but like I'd never like my max would be 40,000. Like I wouldn't go beyond that for a huge
affordable
painting.
art of
For a
40,000 rupees.
huge painting.
Okay.
I mean,
Wow, very
considering
affordable, yo.
people are selling for lakhs and all, I was like,
Oh
okay,
my God.
if we're selling a 6 foot tall canvas, I will sell it for 40,000.
So do you
Yeah.
still do it once in a while, or are you?
I did an exhibition in Delhi 2 years ago. Last was my was a show that I went for, and I just got so, I don't know. I feel like the older I get, the more put off I get by the fakeness of like the artwork can sometimes just be so fake. Like,
Uh-oh.
you know, I appreciate that there are art enthusiasts that know good art, but also a lot of people are just coming there for the wine and cheese. They don't know art. They don't know
Mm-hmm.
what they're buying. They just want to buy something because it's
It's
cool to
just
buy it.
cool. It's
And they
hip
have,
to.
yeah, it's hip to buy, and they have like a little extra cash lying around, and they're like, yes, darling, this will look lovely in our guest room. And I was like,
Oh yeah, dude. Art is very confusing to me that way. Did all of these things help you in navigating your music also, or were these like all separate? And like for example, your whole headspace, did that enhance or did that improvise because of all of these other things that you were doing?
for
Or
sure. Like, I feel like, okay, so the art side of it, you're exposed to traditional art, you're studying these traditional artists, you're looking at the most pathetic, let's take the most basic example of Van Gogh, okay? Like, such a tragic story. Or you look at the madness of Salvador Dali and you're like,
Mhm.
inspired so much by all these people. And then you try and make comparisons to now, and you're seeing the biggest topic of the moment is depression. And then you're
Yeah,
talking,
yeah.
thinking about Van Gogh was probably hella depressed. No therapist. I have a therapist. I call my therapist all the time. I'm like, I need you right now. Imagine if he had that. Probably wouldn't have offed himself. And then you're just always trying to like draw parallels, and so I think because I am so consumed by the human experience. Like for me, the point of life is to understand why we are living and what is your purpose. And so when I'm studying human beings and I write about the human experience, whether it's about grief or anger or joy or love or whatever it is, that is what I always was inspired by when it came to fine art, and then I brought that into my music.
So I mean, now that you spoke about depression and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm I, I'm assuming now, but I'm sure you would have probably had like a very depressed phase at some point in time, or was there?
Struggle with it
Yes. So how did that help you
as my
express
outlet.
yourself
Mm-hmm.
better?
I was just talking to my best friend about this the other day, and she said to me, she said, not talking about stuff causes cancer. And I was
Mhm.
like, yo, that's apparently true. Now people are talking about if you're not expressing yourself and you're holding things inside and you're keeping things in, the way tumors form, it's literally like just amassing negative emotion and unsaid things. And so if you have an outlet, and that could mean you're playing tennis, it could mean you're playing basketball, you're playing sports, whatever, like you're letting it out in some way, taking that breath. That is so important. So for me, that's art. That's music. And I sing loudly. Like when I get on stage, I sing loudly because I want to let it out. And I've seen like a lot of people when they're doing yoga and they're breathing and you're doing pranayam, you're letting it out. So yeah, I think I've struggled with depression my entire adult life. I always needed therapy. I've been through a lot of very, very difficult times in my life,
Yeah.
and like things that really broke me.
Ouch.
And
Okay.
so it's a constant struggle of putting yourself back together,
Definitely.
and you can't do it yourself.
Th- okay.
You can't do it
Yeah.
yourself. You need a guide. That's what
Mhm.
you have therapists for. That's what you have therapy for. That's what you have art for. Music and art
Yeah.
are therapy also. So
Definitely.
yeah.
Definitely. So as an indie artist,
Hmm.
um, there are a lot of struggles, not just with the making of music,
Hmm.
but also the things around it,
Hmm.
like making the video or just some artwork or even promoting things, spending money. So, with all of these setbacks, how did PK, sort of fight all of these, or, how did she win through and move ahead? What was the secret behind putting out consistently
Putting out
also.
consistent.
Yeah.
You know what? And I've been telling everyone this. You gotta save. You gotta have that day job. You gotta save that money. I swear, like if I started working when I was 19 years old. Okay, my first graphic design job was when I was 19 years old. From the time I was 19 and now I'm 32, I've just been saving. Like it's you gotta, and I think you just have to be smart about your money. So if you have, if you keep aside money for your art, you keep money aside for your living, you can fund it. So like every time I knew I'm gonna put a single out in August and we're in June, I'm gonna keep that 20,000 bucks aside or 30,000 bucks aside every month until I put it out. I know for a fact nothing of quality comes less than 1 lakh. You got to spend on that video, you got to spend on that PR, spend on those ads for marketing. You got to do it. And so make sure you so I would literally take up extra gigs, extra jobs, extra clients just so I could fund that single.
Oh my.
That is literally how I go about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
From this whole indie scene only,
Hmm.
because genre specifically, you're more of a rock enthusiast as well as obviously rock artist yourself. Do you think Hyderabad still has that whole rock era crowd, or have we lost it somewhere? Because I'm a rapper myself. I mean, I grew up with rap rock, but by then rock was already, with rap and with a lot of other things also. Obviously, it was a very enhancing product, but I mean, 10 years ago, we had like crazy rock bands in the city
Mm-hmm.
who were doing old school stuff, also doing their original music. But what do you think happened there?
I feel like all the old rock people from the city moved out. In fact, they're all over the world now. We're all still friends with them. But whoever is still in the city, there are still metal bands, there's still rock bands, but it's just not as many as we used to have.
Yeah, definitely.
Like the once in a while that there's aggressive tendencies, right? That's Abbas's IP. And whenever you have one of those gigs at EXT, you go and you see the entire community shown
The
up.
whole, yeah.
300 odd people, they're all there,
Yes.
houseful. So you still have like a diehard kind of following for the genre. It's just if you had the same thing happening every month, they all wouldn't show up. If you do it once in 6 months, maybe then they'll show up because it's got to be, I don't know, there's got to be a niche to it or something. I don't know what it is.
Okay.
But the culture is not there here. You go to Bombay, go to Bangalore, you'll find it there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Northeast.
Definitely.
Shillong. I'm dying to go to the Northeast and play there. Like I feel like all the rockers just live there.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They all just live there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm coming to that. Especially coming from a city from Hyderabad and where, regional music like Telugu or even Hindi at this point or Dakkani music plays so much of impact. I mean, first of all, did you ever get a chance to get associated with the Telugu movie or with somebody from the Telugu scene?
I've sung Telugu songs for like movies.
Okay.
I did 2.
Which one?
I don't remember what they were called, but I do remember I worked with a music producer whose name was PK Dundee.
PK Dundee. Okay.
Dundee.
Okay, awesome.
And he was very cool. And then there was another one that I've completely forgotten. But yeah, I've done.
So you've done Telugu music too?
I have.
Awesome. How did you find that experience,
They were so kind and patient with me. Because I was like...
The pronunciation?
The pronunciations, I was like messing them up. So they would take that time. Like, no, that's not how you say it. But eventually, I got around to it and it was fine.
Awesome.
I've done Hindi rap.
You've done Hindi rap?
Most recently for a Netflix show that's going to come out. And it's funny.
Whoa, awesome.
It's funny because they needed the Hindi rap to be... if the character is a Northeastern girl and they said, Pranati sounds exactly like a Northeastern person speaking Hindi. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did it. And I'm actually really excited about that coming out. I don't know when it's going to be up. I'll tell you.
Hey, that's awesome. Netflix Hindi raps. That's cool. Cool. Did you get a chance to like collaborate with artists from Mumbai, Delhi, as in for the movies or anything? What is your whole movie side of things like? Because in India, I've seen, I mean, with my basic observation, which is very limited by the way, but still, I've seen, especially growing up in a city like Hyderabad, that movie music, plays a very important role in a few households at least.
For sure.
Like these Telugu hardcore houses where there's Partha Tiyaga SPB shows happen, all these realities shows, that's the evening like. So I'm pretty sure it was very different with you. But what is your whole take around this whole music in the movies? And do you think it affects the indie scene in any way, or
Um, I mean, look, it's a part of our culture, quite literally, having like music in movies, Bollywood, Tollywood, whatever wood that we have here in India. And it is the backbone of of 90% of our society. Like, I know there are Indians, people everywhere, they're on their phones, they're watching reels, they're listening to music, it's on the radio. Music plays such a huge part of everyone's life in their regional language.
awesome, yeah.
And because a huge part of our country are working class people that have very little else to look forward to in their day apart from their job, it's entertainment after
Yeah,
that. They go to the
yeah,
movies, they're watching TV at home, or on the phone, and they're
definitely.
listening to their favorite Telugu songs, or there's a romance that is portrayed in a movie that breaks my heart to say so, but I don't think most people have in reality.
Oh yeah.
They escape with
Okay.
with
Okay.
with these movies.
That's
It's a
true, yeah.
fantasy. And so I applaud our culture for having that. It's so unique. Like, it's so unique. Like,
is.
where else would you see that? It's affecting our independent music scene again. Like, let's be honest, what we are, what I've been brought up like also, is a westernized version of this is Western India. This is a modern India. This is colonial influence. And we wouldn't be singing in English. We wouldn't be speaking English. We wouldn't know rock music at all if it wasn't for what came
For
in.
that, yeah,
And
definitely.
so it's tough for us to sustain that because we're a very small percentage of the country. So our listeners are also a very small percentage. So we need to, especially for me, and I'm so focused on this, need to aim at outside the country. You got to get your listeners from America, from Europe, from Australia, from New Zealand, because I'm not singing, and definitely India. And I have supporters. I do have listeners or people that show up for gigs, but it's this much compared to a country that has that much.
What is your game plan for all these to get your music to reach out to the other countries? Like,
It's things like this, like collaborating with international artists, for example,
yeah.
or something as simple as aiming your ads, your Meta or Google ads
Okay.
outside of the
Okay.
country,
Okay.
getting in touch with international bloggers, playing outside of the country, go outside like your country in Asia, go play in other Asian countries, start there, try Dubai, go to Australia, like just keep going, keep going.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you, you know, I mean, I've been discussing things with different artists, and mostly most of them are trying to do, I mean, because they're doing music full time, they really don't have time to do anything else
Hmm.
as such.
Hmm.
But you are like a multi-talented person with, you're doing, you have your own startup, and you've been associated with other forms of art, and it's not like that is like a hobby to you. You're equally good at it. So how do you find, what is the secret behind all of this multitasking, dude? Like,
Multitasking. It's exhausting. But I just came to realize I can't do my art if I don't have my job. Like I have it, like I was telling you before, I can't fund it without. So I think the trick is wake up at 6 a.m. Wake up early. Wake up early. And then you can fit everything into your day. Like my schedule always is wake up at 6, go for my run, come back, start my day at 8. So from 8 to 4:35, I'm
very
working. And then I take a small break. And then from about 6 to 9, 9:30, it's all about the music. Either I'm writing or I'm recording or we're jamming or something music, right? Or I'm practicing. And then you're in bed by 10, 10:30 and you do it all over again. So I think it's just a discipline. Like you just have to make it happen.
Oh my god.
And in between, like if you have to do, take this for example, like you got to do an interview, you have to do extracurricular things, go for a meeting,
Definitely,
travel
yeah.
for a show, do radio, whatever it is, you just have to slot it into that between 8 to 9 o'clock. You have like those many hours. Make the most of it.
Wow, very European.
Yeah.
8 to 4 work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen here, like, I think other friends who are also singer-songwriter, they start their day at 11, 12, and then goes all night. Now they're like till 4 a.m. They're just awake trying to do something. And
I get that. I do understand that there's a silence at night where you can focus. So a lot of artists actually prefer working at night.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I've done that a few times where, like, if I'm writing music, I would like to when the world is quiet. I would love to do
Oh,
that when
yeah.
it's dark and quiet.
Sometimes even I enjoy writing post well. And the best part is you don't have these constant calls, random things that
Yeah.
disturb you while you're, in your creative space. Yeah.
Just you.
It's
Yeah.
better. It's better at that time. What is your advice to that one kid with a dream?
Be disciplined.
Okay.
Yeah.
Simple. Be disciplined.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We'll just whatever she said before also, we'll put that as a follow-up. So
Yeah.
what is your dream venue to perform? What would be your dream stage?
I want to play Sick New World. I want to play Rockville. I want to play all those stages. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What is that one song that inspired you to like push yourself into full-time music, or was there a song like that?
Wow. I don't think there was a song. I definitely think just watching Linkin Park's journey and just understanding Chester Bennington as a human being from a human perspective just helped me realize that nothing should really hold a person back from doing what they want to do with their art.
Craziest fan encounter that you've had?
Craziest fan encounter that I had. There was this one person fairly recently who was following me all around the venue. And initially I was a little worried, but he was just a little guy. And then I looked back and I said, "Can I help you?" And he was like, "Can you please sign my chest?"
Sign my chest.
It was very cute.
Did you end up doing it?
I did it.
Awesome. What is like one of the strangest DMs that you've had?
Oh my God. There was this one crazy person from the city, and I don't know what gotten into him, but he was like, basically he wanted to collaborate with me on something. And this was many years ago, and I just could not find the time to do this because our music, our genres are very different.
Okay.
So I was like, I'll get to it. And then one day, I don't know if he was drunk or whatever, he DMs me and he's like, "The fire of the dragon will engulf you and you will be swallowed into the depths of hell." And I was like, what?
Whoa. She was like, that should be the lyrics, bro. Let's start.
I was like, these are some sick lyrics, man.
Oh my God. So that guy ended up cursing you.
Cursing me. And then the next day he DM'd me saying, "I'm very sorry."
Oh. He ought to piss you off after that.
Yeah.
Was this guy was a rapper or what?
No, he's a pianist.
Oh, he's a pianist.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was like, what am I going to do with, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, pianists are generally, I think, okay, I thought they're very introvertish, sort of silent.
Introvert. Never trust an introvert.
Yeah. Hey, so your Spotify, what is the top 3 songs right now that you're on loop on?
The entire new album by Era. The new Architects put out a new song. And then I think the third, what was it? Of Mice and Men. There's another band called Of Mice and Men. Literally, I don't know which particular song of theirs is on my top 3 right now, but these are the 3 bands that I'm just like listening to constantly.
Your pet
Bird.
parrot. Yeah, the bird. Okay, I'll just say bird because I don't know if it's a parrot.
It's
or
a parrot. Yeah, you're
okay,
right.
It's a parrot.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is his name, yo? We've been trying to search, and
Tito, the African grey parrot.
Tito. Awesome.
Yeah. So, and it's funny. So Tito came to me as a boy, and then one day Tito laid an egg.
What? Oh my God.
So as of year before last, year before last, so now I'm calling her she. Tito was under my cupboard and just would not get out from under there. And I was like, "Tito, what are you doing? Get out here, get out here." Then I looked down and saw that she laid an egg there. I was like, I lost my
Like,
mind.
Tito.
I was like, Tito, you're a girl. Oh my God. I lost my shit. But then, yeah, so now Tito the girl,
Okay.
she's,
Can they do that? Are they allowed? I mean, is that a common thing in the birds?
I think that, you only know the gender of a bird if you do a blood test. So basically,
So you just assumed he was a guy.
from the family that I adopted Tito from said that this is a boy, and it was Tito boy. Tito acted
Okay.
quite like a boy, but Tito ended up actually being a girl. So she's my everything.
Modern day lesson of not to assume a gender, huh?
Exactly. That was literally her statement. She was like, "How could you assume I was
Oh
a boy?"
my God.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a very weird question. But because I'm a hip hop head, I just thought I'd ask if you've been seeing the current scene. Drake or Kendrick?
Kendrick.
Oh, Kendrick. Why so?
He's a poet.
Okay.
He's a
Yeah.
poet.
He's legit, yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I grew up to a lot of Kendrick music too. So yeah,
Kendrick.
definitely Kendrick. Dude. Lyrically, he's bomb.
Yeah. Artistically also. I mean, no offense to Drake. Drake is great. But Drake is pop to me.
Yeah, Drake is pop to rappers too. So
Awesome. Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
just kidding. Okay, so if you had like a chance to form your dream team band,
Mm.
who would the members be?
Well, first I would love to get signed to Sumerian Records. And then I could be managed by Ash Avilson. And he's they're in LA. And then I love my band right now. I wouldn't have it any other way. I wish like I could just take these boys and place them in LA
Okay.
and just like have that experience.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Very safe answer because you have gigs coming up, huh?
Don't leave me.
Hey, so I mean, couldn't help but notice that you've removed a lot of your previous tracks from all the platforms, and your Insta also went sort of, I think now there's only like 20-30 posts, and then after that it's all gone. So what happened there?
This is my problem with music in general. I feel like when I started PK, I don't know, I feel like there's always a trend in music and then you get caught up in the trend and everything is so there's no permanence to it. Something's hot today, it's gone tomorrow.
Right.
And at the time when I came back after the Ragamuffins disbanded, I came back into writing and making music in 2018. Before I wrote Good Old Fashioned in Love, I came back, I was doing jazz almost full time at this point, right? And when my very first manager said to me that, everyone's singing R&B now, rock isn't even a thing anymore.
Okay.
You probably shouldn't like continue writing the music you were writing earlier. Try writing something in a more jazz, pop, R&B vibe. And I was completely like, I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to what this person is saying because I don't know any better right now. I'm fresh
Okay.
back on here.
Okay.
I don't know what's been happening since I was gone. I wasn't really keeping up with the music scene. I was
Fair enough.
completely engrossed with my business and I was out of it. So I wrote R&B music. It was cute. It was nice. I liked it. But it wasn't me. So I just kind of, once I love those songs, but like after a point, I just stopped enjoying even performing them live
Uh-oh.
because I would get off stage and just be like, I don't know, I just don't feel it.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's not a narrative that resonates with me anymore. So I was like, you know what? I don't care if rock is not a huge thing here anymore, as long as I'm being authentic about who I am. So I'm going to take it off. I'm going to be myself, rewrite this narrative, stick to what I'm good at.
Crazy. So a little follow-up question around rock music. So as an artist and as just a fan of the music, of the genre, what is your game plan or what is your initiative to bring this back? What do you want to do, if given a chance to bring this back? Or what are you trying to do already for
With rock?
the scene? Yeah, to bring it back to its glory days.
Just want to put music out there. Organize festivals, like get more bands that are in the genre together in venues in Hyderabad for a start. Just keep making things happen. Keep doing it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
and then
Yeah, that's
eventually go
amazing.
outside the country as much as I can. Yeah.
So right now, I thought we'll probably shift towards the writer, the songwriter PK,
Mhm.
and try to understand a few things. For all the audience also who's watching this, probably hopefully there are a few aspiring musicians in this. We wanted to know what goes through in your head while you're making a song. How does it even start off? Like,
Like, I'll take Starlight, for example. I was at a season of my life, it's always relevant to what I'm going through at the time. So, like Starlight, I felt like, so there was a long time from my mid early 20s to my late 20s where I was going through a lot of hell emotionally. There were a lot of episodes of various traumatic things that were happening in my life. And then at 29, I was sitting in my apartment, and it was raining outside. And I just remember feeling this beautiful sense of relief because I looked around me and I was like, wow, I just came out of this and I'm okay. Like, I'm unscathed. I'm alive. I'm well. Everything's okay. I'm mentally okay, physically okay. Everyone's okay. And I wrote this song, and the lyrics like say, when the mirror cracks, it's time to look ahead, don't look back. And this was something that my therapist kept telling me as well. As much as you need to process what you went through, don't dwell on it. Like,
gotcha.
sometimes you gotta just let it out, write it on paper, tear it up, lock it up, throw it out, let it go. Um, and so like,
But don't get comfortable with your.
don't get too comfortable. Don't make it a part of your My biggest like self criticism right now is I spent such a huge part of my 20s just dwelling on my pain and on my suffering. Like, I felt like I made that an excuse for so many things. And I was like, oh no, but like I went through this. Oh no, but this happened to me. And it just became such a huge part of my narrative, to the extent that I started to define myself by my suffering. And I just at that point was like, I would rather define myself by my deliverance, by my overcoming what I did, rather than on what actually happened. So writing Starlight, writing that album, and the whole album actually starts with a song called What a Shame and ends with Starlight. And it literally is, the journey is from a girl lying in bed, unable to get out of bed, and me looking at myself saying, what a shame. You're such a great person to other people, and you can't be good to yourself. And then it goes to the song called Fever Dream, which is, I can't believe the shit I just went through. And now I'm out of it and I'm like, life's good. Was it like, it felt like a fever dream, like a weird kind of episode. And then it goes into No Ordinary, where you're like, you know what? I'm good. Like, I'm great. I'm not ordinary. I'm good. And then it ends with Starlight saying, this is your affirmation that you, no matter what you're going through, who you are, where you come from, you have the power in you to actually overcome whatever episode it is that you're going through. So I think the songwriting process for me is always, what's the narrative right now?
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's a very well thought out story also,
Mhm.
like from the start to the end. That's an awesome album, yo. It's a very motivational kind of song. So we thought we'd do a small flip side to it, sort of, because so okay. By the way, welcome to the final section, Jam with Maha, where we're trying to do this with every artist and trying to just while we're talking about the journeys of these artists, we also want to get into their a little bit of those things while recording whatever happens, and those small things that people generally miss out on. So we wanted to try that here, and I thought if I could, sort of give you a small tribute, like a small tribute to Starlight. And so me and my producer Archit, we sort of came up with this version of Starlight. If you can please put your headphones on. This is
sir.
something that
I'm
we
excited
have
about
done.
this.
And
It's going to be awesome.
cool. Yo, Aditya. Let's play the track, please. So I want to just sort of tell you what I tried to write
Okay.
on I mean, if it even relates to Starlight in any way,
Yeah.
you could let me know.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, cool. So what I tried doing here was, I sort of thought just like a small tribute to not just one track, but all the other tracks that you've been doing. So I said, well, I'm still running
Yeah.
while the story unfolds.
Yeah.
I'm no ordinary human
Yeah.
when I get in my zone.
Yeah.
I'll be the best damn memory when I leave this world.
Yeah.
Because I'm a starlight, burning bright, making my own universe. So,
Maha, that is freaking amazing.
thank you so
I
much.
want a photograph of that. I love that. That's so good.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, this is something that we came up with.
Yeah.
So, if you can continue from here,
So
and
then it goes, you're risen from the ashes. Am I doing that?
oh yeah,
Pre-chorus.
yeah, the pre-chorus,
Yeah.
and then you get into the
Okay.
whole Starlight section. So we thought that'll be. I mean, we wanted to represent this song like as a hip hop team. You know, my
Yeah.
team is a little hip hoppy in our music
Yeah.
zone. So we thought, you know, if you could cover this in a hip hop / like an EDM genre,
Mm-hmm.
how you have this whole pre-chorus drop. You know, the whole build up towards the drop.
Yeah.
So we thought we'll do that, and we'd have those your pre-chorus lines going into that while the drop comes in with your vocals,
The vocals,
because you're a rock vintage artist where the drop is generally the chorus,
Yeah, yeah.
and then that'll be like
So then you're
a
recording this.
semi-freestyly thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's go.
Now we ain't looking back, we coming through. Now we just all about the making moves. I'ma choose all of my dreams while I have a shot at it. I'm ballin', I fall and I still got it. A shot at it. Well, I'm still running while the story unfolds. I'm no ordinary human when I get in my soul. I'll be the best damn memory when I leave this world. Cause I'm the starlight, burning bright, making my own universe. Now what we doing, what we waiting for? I left my heart out in the studio. Now put your hands up in the air if you know. No, we ain't looking back. No, we ain't no more.
You're risen from the ashes in plain sight. You are starlight. Your story unfolds and your beauty is gold, and you are starlight. You are starlight. You're starlight. You're starlight. Yeah, you are starlight. You're starlight. You're starlight. You're risen from the ashes in plain sight. You are starlight. Your story unfolds and your beauty is gold, and you are starlight.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I love it.
Oh my god, dude, your voice is magical, man. Like live experience of this is
Aw.
in the studio. It's very different. I mean,
I cracked
magical.
in between, but
Oh my god,
I
that
love
was
this
awesome.
version. It's so good.
Hey, thank you so much.
Thank
Yo,
you
this
for
is
doing
crazy.
this.
Thank you
Oh,
so much
man.
for making an amazing song for us to even make this version out. It was crazy watching you live in action also.
You too. You're such a good fucking rapper, dude.
Oh damn,
But
thank you so much.
even,
From
we
you
gotta do
especially.
some more shit
We
together.
should. Oh my god. I was thinking, this is,
Who even is Hanuman kind? Look at you.
oh my god, no, yeah.
You have that nice gritty texture going
Okay,
there, like,
okay.
and like you're sending it. It's not like, I feel like a lot of rappers, they get the delivery, but they don't get the grit,
Okay.
which is
okay.
why I like Suraj's delivery. You freaking have that. You should do
damn.
it more often.
Thank you so much. Yes, that's the
Yeah.
idea. To sort of obviously push myself more out there
Mm-hmm.
as an artist, and thanks for inspiring me, and thanks for inspiring a lot of
Thank
other
you
indie
for
artists in the
having
scene,
me.
yo.
It means a lot.
This is how the journey looks like with PK, and there's a lot more amazing things coming up from the podcast as well as from PK, from her side as well. Thank you so much for being part of our
Thank you
podcast,
for
and you know,
having me.
Oh, this is an honor. It was an honor having you, and also the live recording with you was just mind blowing. I mean, watching you on stage is different, but in the studio, you're a different beast, man.
Thank you, and so are you. You wrote such a brilliant verse.
Thank you so
Like,
much.
I still
Thank
can't
you
get
so
over it.
much.
I can't get over it.
Thank you so much. So, cool guys. Stay tuned to the Maha podcast. See you guys soon. And
Podcast.